Well, one of the world's most strategically important waterways has become the new epicentre of a long-standing feud between arch-enemies Iran and the United States. Iran, whose weak economy depends heavily on oil exports, is threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz if Western powers keep trying to disband its nuclear program. Well, Washington says the closure of the strait will not be tolerated and that American warships will be used if need be. Observers say the escalating crisis could also be bad news for consumers around the world. Sarah Dingle reports.
The waters are troubled in the Strait of Hormuz. The United States and Iran are readying their warships in a high-stakes game which could destabilise not only the region but the global oil supply.
It could really escalate simply because the two sides have locked themselves in irreconcilable positions.
The Iranians have certainly upped the ante.
Iran has threatened to cut off a key oil supply route by blockading these waters, at their narrowest just over 50 kilometres wide. The strait has been described by the US Energy Administration as one of the world's most strategic choke points, something which Iran knows all too well.
Today, closing the Straits of Hormuz for Iran's armed forces is really easy. Or as the Iranians say, it will be easier than drinking a glass of water.
About 1/6 of the world's oil trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz, whose northern shore is controlled by Iran. The strait links the oil-producing states of Saudi Arabia, Iraq and the Gulf to the Indian Ocean, with the route monitored by the US Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain.
It wouldn't necessarily directly affect the US as they don't tend to import a lot of Gulf oil as an overall percentage, but it would affect supply to vital countries, obviously, like China, Japan, India. And these things have flow-on effects for stability of the global economy. And, you know, this is coming obviously in a time of tremendous volatility, not just in Europe, but also the US and potentially in Japan as well.
The United States has slammed Iran's behaviour as irrational and says it won't tolerate any interference of supply. In the past, US President Barack Obama advocated a dialogue with Iran, but Middle Eastern expert Dr. Ben McQueen says Congress is increasingly hostile.
I think the Iranians have a very good sense that there's a growing division between the Obama administration and Congress over the US-Iran policy. So I think the Iranians see this as a bit of an opportunity to try and, I guess, wedge the US administration in the negotiation process and perhaps leverage a bit more room for themselves on both the sanctions and also their broader dealings with the region.
It's the latest escalation of a tense relationship which goes back decades.
It arose with the overthrow of the pro-Western monarchy of the Shah in the beginning of 1979, and its replacement by Ayatollah Khomeini's Islamic regime with an anti-American posture.
Director of the Centre for Arab and Islamic Studies, Professor Amen Saikal, says that mistrust was cemented when 52 American embassy workers were taken hostage by Iran. They were finally released more than a year later.
And appeared generally in good spirit despite their 14.5-month ordeal.
I think that's something that the Americans remember to the present day, and therefore they have not really recovered from that humiliation that the Carter administration suffered at the time.
Those tensions have been kept on the boil by Iran's nuclear program, which it has pursued despite more than 30 years of international sanctions.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
Just last month, the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed that Iran has been secretly working on building a nuclear weapon for the past 8 years.
The consequences, I think, of an Iranian determination to have an exercisable nuclear option, if not actually a functioning nuclear arsenal, I think are difficult to underestimate.
Nuclear weapons expert Ron Huskin estimates Iran could now build a nuclear bomb within 18 months.
To cross that particular threshold and only have a single bomb, not too many people consider that to be a smart option. You would normally want to have at least a modest arsenal. And the United States, of course, has made it abundantly clear that it's determined to prevent that from happening.
Who'll win this high-stakes round of brinkmanship remains to be seen, but the price for both sides could be extremely high.
The higher oil prices and the shortage of oil in the world market, and therefore a serious impact on the world economy. Something that I think the United States and its European allies would like to really avoid as much as possible.
I think the Iranians have a tendency in their diplomatic behaviour to play this game of brinksmanship more than other states, but you would think within the State Department they would be placing a pretty simple cost-benefit analysis on this and realising that even should the tensions rise even further, it would cost the Iranians far more than they've gained should they act on this.
Sarah Dingle with that report.